All right, guys, so there are a lot of similarities and there are also a lot of differences when it comes to buying real estate, from state to state and even, obviously country to country. Now, over the years, I feel like at this point, I've helped people move here from just about every other state. So I've kind of been keeping like a rolling list of just some differences that have sort of stuck out to me. So today I have 10 differences that we're going to be kind of going over and talking about. Now, as always, if you guys have any questions, please just feel free to reach out, give me a call. Again, I don't make, my living from YouTube. I'm a realtor, so I make, all my money through helping people buy and sell real estate. So all that I ask is that if you don't hate these videos, if you think they're all right, just when it comes time for you and your family to make your move, give me the opportunity to earn your business. That's all I ask for. So with that being said, let's get started and let's talk about the first difference that is on my list. And these are not in any particular order. This is just how I have them on my notepad in my phone. So the first one is going to be the busy season, the busy buying season. What's the real estate market like out here? Now, I think the majority of the country is sort of the same way, but here in East Tennessee, the spring through fall is definitely our busiest time of the year, in spring, in particular. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just that people, don't want to move around in the winter. Maybe you've got a hangover from the holidays, or maybe it even has to do with schools. But typically springtime, right now is the beginning of March. So usually right now and we are seeing it, the market starts to kind of heat up as soon as school's out. It's just really on. I mean, at one point in time, like most realtors would make like the majority of your income during springtime. So wintertime is usually our slow period, usually like right after Thanksgiving through, like around now is typically, pretty slow. So what you'll see here in East Tennessee is, again, around March, all the way on, you're going to see, inventory pickup. You're going to see a lot more competition as well. But that's, our busy season. I know some places like Florida, their busy season is like complete opposite as ours, but that's, what the market's like here. Now, the second difference that I hear, and I get people that call me all the time and they say, Chevy, I want to make sure that I don't get an HOA neighborhood because I don't want to have any restrictions. Well, here's the deal. The way that restrictions work in our area is it's not necessarily based off of your HOA. The HOA can certainly have their restrictions, but more often than not, it's set by the actual subdivision, right? So like I live in a subdivision where, we don't have an HOA, but we do have subdivisional restrictions. Now, in some areas, keep in mind these restrictions are policed by, the residents. So in some areas, you could have your Karens out there that are real, they want to tell on everybody. And you could have some areas where people just don't care. Like, just honestly, in my neighborhood, like, you could go around and ask everyone what the restrictions are, and I doubt anyone would actually even know. With that being said, you should certainly, abide by your restrictions, because who knows who's going to move in next door, and then all of a sudden, you do have to start doing that. But I'm telling you all this just to let you know that just because you don't have an HOA here doesn't mean you're not going to have restrictions, right? So you're going to have your subdivisional restrictions. Now, if you're not in a subdivision, you are still going to have restrictions. It's just going to be either the city or the county restrictions. And normally those aren't too bad. Certainly in the city, they're going to be more restrictive, but it's still something that you need to check out, to make sure that that property is going to work for what you want to use it for. So the third difference I have here is that you actually take possession of the home at closing. Now, I've seen in some states where it actually have to wait for, like, you would go to close and you have to wait for everything to get recorded. Sometimes that can take a couple days, and then you get possession. Here, as soon as you've signed and everything's funded, most people like start moving in right after closing, right? That's how it works here. Okay, so the next difference is going to be, and I've actually paired these together, but I'm going to say radon and termites. These are both things that you need to consider. I've done a video talking about radon and termites, but, just do some research. That might be something that you want to keep in mind whenever it comes to your due diligence period, right? And in fact, some lenders will require, for certain loans, they'll require a termite letter. So moving right along, the next difference I have is that surveys are not required in our area. I don't know why, but that's just how it is. It's how it's always been, and it's probably how it always will be. Even if you buy a brand new home where they have parceled everything off, they have these nice little plat maps they'll give you, you still don't have a survey, and you have to pay for one if you want, if you want to know exactly where your lines are. So that's kind of bizarre to me. You would think that when you're spending this much money on something that you would have a survey, but you don't. We're buying a new house down the road, a new construction home actually, and we're having to pay $1,000 for a dang survey so that we can get our fence right on the property line. So it is what it is. Don't complain to me. It's not my rule, but that's how it is. The next difference is going to be that we use title companies. Okay, so in some areas you would actually have just like a lawyer, or in some areas I think maybe even have both. Again, I don't know what the other areas are totally like. This is just sort of what I've, kind of come up with. But here we use title companies, which are, ran through, law firms, real estate attorneys. And yeah, that's just basically how it is. I like having title companies a lot. They're a non-biased party. It's good to have that, kind of separated. Okay, and the next difference, and I don't know if this is a difference. I could not find any information to show any other states that don't pay their taxes in arrear, but here in East Tennessee, we pay our taxes in arrear, meaning that, you're going to start, I believe they come out around October, and then there's a period in which if you pay them in that period, you don't get, you don't have any additional fees, but if you pay it after that period, you do have additional fees, and I think it goes all the way to maybe like April. Most of us have our taxes escrowed in, so it's like you don't even really think about it. But if you wanted to know, now we pay our taxes in arrears here. Okay, the next difference is going to be school zoning. Okay, in some areas, I've had people that have reached out that want to be, in a certain school zone, but they can't find any inventory there. So they ask me, well, how do we go about getting our kids in that school? Now, some schools will allow you to pay tuition. Some schools may have some kind of exceptions, but for the most part, the way that it works here is you are zoned for a specific school based on where you live. So you do have, private school options. And, there are some cases where, you can pay tuition or you can get your kids in another school, but I wouldn't really bank on it. And a lot of our really popular schools are already starting to get to the point to where I mean, some are overcrowded. I'm not going to say they all are, and maybe they are. I don't know for certain, but I just know that it's getting harder and harder to get your kids in, some of these higher end schools, the ones that people are, really, raving about. So just keep that in mind whenever it comes to buying your house. You want to make sure that your home is going to be zoned for a school that that you find acceptable. Okay, now here's another difference, and this one really throws people from the north off. A lot of people will come down here and they'll find that a home's heating and air is electric. It's not gas. And now don't get me wrong, we have a mixture of everything, but you will run across a lot of homes that are just electric, central heat and air, and people are really worried or concerned that their bills are going to be just like astronomical, and they're really not. Like if you look at the power companies, a lot of them will show what their price per, I think it's kilowatt is how they go by it. Here you're paying about 11 cents per kilowatt. I had a client that moved here from Massachusetts, and he had shared with me that he was actually paying 22 cents a kilowatt up there. So I know up there you guys have like your big oil tanks or whatever you guys do, and you have to pay for that. It's not like that down here, right? And now you could certainly have gas, but I would say like if you're worried about central heating and air, making your bills a lot higher, I would go calculate it up first, because I think you'd be surprised that it's not going to be nearly as high as what you might think. So that's definitely a big difference too. So if you see a home that's this electric heat and air, don't freak out. It's pretty normal down here. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to say is septic tank and wells. Now, in a lot of areas, people are used to septic tank and wells, and again, this is kind of like the termites and radon, sort of bundling these together. When it comes to septic tanks and wells, that is something that's very common out here. Now, wells aren't as common, and they're sort of getting faded out. It seems like the cities are sort of expanding their reaches and getting city water in a lot of these other places. But, especially if you're looking for sort of that rural, kind of really private, out in the middle of nowhere type property, you're probably going to have septic and well. Septic tanks are one of those things, you can do the research for yourself, but it's very common, not a huge issue. You just you want to know where that septic tank is on your property, so kind of how to situate the property in the way that you want. And you also want to know like maintenance and things like that, sort of I guess your guide to owning a septic tank. And I would say the same thing with wells. So when it comes to that, again, don't freak out. It's just something that's that we have a lot of here. So those are my 10 differences. And again, I know that maybe you got a lot of information out of there, or maybe everything's you kind of already knew all that stuff. These are really the biggest differences that I hear. If you guys can think of something, please leave it in the comments. I would love to. I'm going to keep this list rolling, so if I get a bunch more that are different, then I'll let you know. But again, I mean, this is kind of a list from like 2 years in the making, so you can see there are a lot of similarities across the board. So with that, like I said earlier, if you guys have any additional questions, please just give me a call. I'd love to talk to you guys. Catch you on the next video. Thanks. Bye.